So here I am. My name is Tony Pavlakis. I'm on Grow Sessions, and I've got my good friends from Trade Roots. I've got my Carl Giannone and Jesse Pitts from Trade Roots. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Well, this is good. I know that we've had a pre-call and we've known each other for many, many years, and this is exciting to just kind of get some insights on your take in some of the cannabis world that we're living in right now. But why don't you guys just Jesse, give me a little bit of your background, and then Carl, you can go either way. Just tell me where you guys started within cannabis and how you got here.
Uh, this is, I don't
If
think
you
we
want to
have
do the
enough time
short
in the
story first, we
podcast,
can do
but
Carl first, and then we'll do Jesse because I think Jesse's is longer.
go ahead, Carl.
Although Jesse's is far more interesting. So real quick, I fully admit it. Up until 2016, I thought this was a business for criminals and children, which now that we have this business, and we'll go into Jesse's story, I don't know where that leaves me. Maybe I still stand by that. So I had an opportunity in 16 to put together an investment group, maybe 16, 17, an investor group for a grow in Oregon.
Okay.
In the process, got to meet Jesse. We went out to Oregon, walked around the farm, and I was a buy-side trader in the past life, so I wake up early. Jesse, formerly construction, wakes up early. So while everybody else was sleeping, we were walking around this gorgeous farm. And one day he looks, the last day, and I'm asking him, I'm just fucking annoying him. Just this question, that just trying to learn
just hammering him.
Right? Oh my God, just sort of like we do every morning on the way to the bank on Monday, just annoying with questions. And so finally he asked me, he's like, look, it's going legal in Mass. Why don't we bring this mountain to Wareham? And it's like, dude, what the fuck is a Wareham? I live in the Upper East Side of New York City. I have an office in Miami. No. And so find out my mom, we thought she had a little tear in her shoulder, turned out to be cancer. And so also up until 2017, I thought that medical cannabis meant when I'm high, and I love the plant since Justin gave me my first nickel bag and when I was 16. And Justin, if you're listening to this, thank you. I always thought that medical cannabis was when I'm sick, I'd rather be high and sick. And if I was cancer sick, I'd probably like to be really high, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a small L libertarian, do what you want, this can't commit a crime against yourself, right? And then talking to doctors and them basically telling me there's no medical use for cannabis, and then talking to nurses who actually live it day to day and tell me there is, we decided to go forward. And so, now I live, what the fuck's a Wareham? I could basically see the building from home, and I've gotten to meet some amazing people, and here I'm up here.
Wareham, here you are. Well, that's awesome. And everybody's got such a cool story on their journey, how they got into the industry and where it takes them, and it's where it's going too. But Jesse, what's your background? So you are definitely, people do know you, but I love hearing everybody's story, how they got here. And I've heard your story, and I think it's great.
It's probably my favorite question when we're out in a social mixer, if you will, out in the industry, and you're meeting people from all walks and all industries, and the famous question is well, what brought you to cannabis? When did you get into cannabis? And I'm always kind of taken aback at first, and I'm like, I don't know how to answer that properly. So I usually go right to 7th grade, because that's just really where it kind of started for me. So it's just I didn't really, because they're they all come from a different world, and I've always been involved in cannabis since that time. So it's very interesting for me to watch it go from where it was then to where it is now. But truth be told, it was always part of my life, and it was always there. I enjoyed it in high school. I was probably the last one in my entire neighborhood to smoke it, which says something about my neighborhood. And we used to jokingly say willpower, and once I finally tried it, I was like, shit, they've lied to me. And
this is really good.
And it changed my world, and I was like, this is actually relaxing. I'm not as high strung. And I enjoyed it, but I couldn't afford it. So I naturally started to become a drug dealer because I wanted to get my own cannabis. And what I didn't realize is I was actually pretty good at doing that. And it kind of I ended up getting a little bit extra than what I needed to smoke, and I ended up starting making money out of it. And I was like, oh wow, what's the harm here? I was working. I started off in a restaurant working as a dishwasher, worked my way up to be a cook. So, hard work wasn't an issue for me, but this was something that was fun and made money. And, that's just something that stuck with me. I got to college at UMass Amherst. I studied astronomy and physics. So I was like, I have to focus. This is going to be the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life. I need to focus, and I can't sell cannabis, because if I do, then I'm not going to be able to focus. That didn't last very long at UMass Amherst. I don't know if
So come October.
Yeah.
That was and then in October.
Thank you, Bradford. So I ended up working together with a group of guys in the dorm. We pulled some money together, and we bought a quarter pound. And I went back to the guy the next day, and I was like, I need another one. He was like, you can't come here every day, but here's a half pound. And I came to him the next day, and I was like, I need another one. He was like, you can't come here every day. Here's a pound. And then it was 5 pounds, and then 20 pounds. And he's just like, where are you putting all of this? And I was like, well, back home. So what we did is, everybody in the dorm that was working together, we put together what we called Operation Hometown. And we were going to bring what we had and the prices we had to the hometowns of all of us, and basically bring me your dealer. And we're gonna negotiate a better deal than he's getting now, and then we'll take over your town. And that was kind of the idea, and it worked well, to the point where we were moving a lot of 100 packs all over the state, if you will. 100 pack being 100 pounds, and that was just a normal thing. We had over $1 million credit line with multiple different distributors, and that was just something that we did, and we did nonstop, but we made a business of it. And there was rules, there were codes, and we did it for a while, until I got arrested in Norton with 70 pounds and $250,000 cash, and wound up in Plymouth County for 18 months.
That'll do it to you.
I did 9 months. I ended up working on a farm building greenhouses, which was pretty ironic. And then did 9 months out on an ankle bracelet. Started a medical company with a friend of mine from college, TJ, and we started the Center for Alternative Life Medicine in New Bedford. We were approached by a group out of New Bedford, a group out of Boston. There was a philanthropic company, and they were going to fund 3 different companies in Massachusetts. We were selected as one of them. We were selected to go out to this Shark Tank event type thing. We were selected out of 25 companies, one out of the top 3, and ended up being one out of the top 2 after the second time we went back out. This company worked with us throughout the process in New Bedford for zoning and everything, with the mayor and the city council and everything, right up until the last minute. And then they decided they were going to do this on their own, and they started their own company. That's actually Netta today.
Jeez, I was just like, what big company now just took your idea and just ran with it? Oh my God.
That was sort of the turning point for me. The DPH back then said, even if you have a cannabis record, they kind of rewrote the regulations, saying if you have a cannabis record, you can't even be an employee for a cannabis company, let alone own one. So I had to take a step back, started banging nails again, doing construction, watching for the rollout of the adult use, and then the CCC rolled out what we call this social equity program.
Yep.
And the bell started dinging, and I was like, all right, they are not excluding the professionals anymore. This is fantastic. We can actually participate. And in fact, they're going to try to give us some sort of leg up. We ended up not getting the social equity status till after licensure, because of the 51% rule, where you had to maintain 51% of ownership. Knowing what we were trying to build, full vertical company, we're going to be raising over $10 million. There's no way someone's going to give me $10 million when they don't have a say of how the company is going to be run.
Yeah.
So we didn't do it until our banker called us and said, hey, are you social equity? We can give you discounts on our banking fees. And I was like, well, let's go for it. And then they had lowered it at that point to 10% for the threshold. So why not? So we did apply for it, and I do believe that we were the first full vertical social equity company in Massachusetts, because of that very drug arrest that I was talking about. So it's come full circle for me. Doing this in my hometown is amazing, because everybody in my hometown at that point knew what had happened to me. It's a small community.
Yeah.
So for them to be able to walk into a store and be like, this is what you turned that into, this is pretty impressive. But it's
really cool.
it's not done without a great team, great partners, and you know, great investors that understood what we were getting into, and in the roller coaster ride that we were all embarking on. So the cannabis industry it's not, there's a lot of unknowns, and it's sort of, you know, you're traveling into the unknown, and that's something, you know, that kind of plays into our name, Trade Roots, and we feel like we're constantly in uncharted waters. And it's being able to navigate those waters, I think that really is going to separate companies apart in the future.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, I love hearing it. I mean, it's so cool. I love that. Like, love your story, and it's so neat to be able to say to people, yeah, dude, like I got arrested. I spent time in the big house, and now look at me now. Because there's people that have like, oh yeah, I've got caught with weed. Like that's like you're like next level. Like some people that have gotten arrested, but not really like you. Yeah, that's the big time. But well,
Tony, a story I'd love to tell.
Absolutely, go ahead, man.
You know how so when you get before you get your final license, the police chief has to walk through the building, and so the old chief was retiring. He's in his 60s, and the new chief's like Jesse, my age-ish. And so we're walking through, and we had opened up
25.
cultivation manufacturing first.
Yeah.
25, obviously. we're the two youngest cannabis founders alive.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
so the chiefs walk in the facility.
Walking through, and so now, and they bring through a bunch of young guys who are like asking buying questions effectively. And then there's sort of the middle group, and then the older folks. There's maybe a dozen people. And so we get out, and so I'm in the back. And so the new chief looks at me, Walter looks at me, and he's like, you know, Carl, you guys have been doing this for a long time. How long's it been? I was like, man, it's been like 4.5 years. And without missing a beat, the retiring chief looks at Jesse and goes, some of you, it's been a lot longer than that.
That's awesome. He gives you the, just letting you know.
He was the dare officer in my school.
Oh my God, that's so funny. And then he was the chief, and then he was trying.
Well, and Jesse was the dare representative.
Oh my God.
It's a true story. That's a true story.
Until you found out.
I still have the shirt. Still have the shirt.
I love it that you go when then they started allowing the professionals to get into the industry. Because there's the people that think they are, then there's the people that live it, and it's yeah, it's pretty wild. But I know in our pre-call we were talking about some cool topics that I wrote down a whole bunch, but I wanted to kind of touch base on like craft versus commercial. Like, can you kind of give me your insights on like craft versus commercial? I know that's like kind of deep and huge, but
no, it's a great question. I mean, it was always, you know, in the traditional market, if you will, it was headies, and there was, you know, your work or your commercial, that you would typically sell, but you're not smoking. All the drug dealers were smoking the headies, and the headies today is what we call craft. That's something that's a little upper echelon. That's something that you want. You know, it's when you pull it out at a party and people smell it, they're like, I know what that is. It's really, you know, Carl always used to pepper me with this question, like, what is craft? And, you know, I always said that craft is doing everything for the right reasons, even when no one's looking. And it doesn't matter. It's not about image. It's not about this. It's really about the true quality of the plant and maximizing that quality. And it goes down to whatever you're doing. You know, there's, you know, craft beer, there's craft cannabis, there's craft, and typically it's small batch, because that gives you the ability to give it that love and care that it needs to maximize that quality. And you know, you see the Craft Brewers Association, there's a maximum amount of barrels you're allowed to brew in order to qualify to be a craft brewer. And that's, you know, the word craft in itself means small batch, you know, and it means something that to me holds integrity and holds character rather than profit. It's not about a profit gain. It's really about producing the best quality product that you can. And it's almost, you know, that was a culture thing in the traditional market, is who can grow the best cannabis. It wasn't who's making the most money growing cannabis. That was a culture thing. Where now I feel like we're seeing this smashing of cultures of business, big business, traditional business, if you will, and the traditional cannabis market merging together, where there are just two different cultures of like it's profit over everything versus it's culture over everything. And that's really what we're seeing, that mashup and this friction, if you will, between those two things. But in the end, I think that there's room for both and for all. And this is played out in probably every other market that's out there right now. And I always go back to craft beer because there's a ton of parallels to it. And, you know, Lagunitas was a great brewing company and they had a great beer, but they did not have the distribution that they have today until they were bought by a larger, big company that had the distribution to then get that great product out to the people. So for me, it's like you need both, you know, and there's room for both. And I think that that's going to eventually develop in the cannabis industry. It's just going to take time. But this us versus them mentality isn't always the healthiest for the industry. And I do think, you know, like Budweiser is still the #1 most popular beer in the world because it's consistent and it's the same everywhere that you get it. I still don't want to drink one. So it's that's kind of what I'm getting at is, you know, if Budweiser created an IPA, and some people told me that they tried and it didn't really work. I don't know if it's still working. But instead of doing that, they go out and they buy Goose Island, and nobody knows that. But now you have the distribution of InBev or Anheuser-Busch, and now it's in every tap everywhere in Massachusetts, and that's just a reality. And they're like, I want an IPA. Well, we have Goose Island. That'll do.
Yeah, that'll do. That's
no idea that is owned by that company because they didn't change the recipe. They didn't change the culture of the company. They didn't change anything. They bought the market share that company held. And it's a brilliant business model on their part, because we can't compete with what these larger companies doing, and they can't really compete about what we're trying to do. But there's room for both. And I think that's something that a lot of people it has to be this way, it has to be that way. It's like, it really doesn't. And no other industry is it that way. And until everybody starts working together and understanding that and working towards that goal, there's going to be a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I look at it too, like what you said too. You brought up a good thing with like the craft breweries and the craft, like the vineyards, all these smaller vineyards. But even if you look at it, even as simple as like restaurants, there's chain restaurants, there's good chain restaurants, and then there's chain restaurants. But you like with the commercial versus craft. Okay, so it's like you just said it perfect. It's consistent. Like if I want to go to whatever XYZ chain restaurant, like the Outback, if I want to go to Outback or whatever it is, you're going to get a consistent meal in every single state you go to. It's relatively be about the same quality. I'm not saying it's the best, it's not the worst, but when you want something special or you want to go out, or say you don't have I only go out once a month and I'm going to go to like that my special Matunic Oyster Bar restaurant that's down in Matunic, Rhode Island, or whatever it is. You're going to go to that restaurant. So there's the consistently food where I just want to eat, then there's stuff that's an occasion. And I think that there's a blend of both with the craft versus commercial. I think that like in some people, like they might just step up their game, like, listen, I'm not going to always do it, always buy the best, but you know what, when I do, I'm only going to buy this. So then there's that portion of it too. Like I can just in life as a 50-year-old dude, this is how I live my world. I'm like, when I want to do it, I'd rather not try the shit stuff. I'd rather just go with something a little bit better and just not smoke it as often.
I had to speak on a panel about craft down in Atlantic City. And I use the analogy of a car, where it's like you can get in any car that runs, and you can get in a Ford Pinto and drive it, and it's going to get you A to B.
Yep.
You get in a Mercedes and drive that same route from A to B. You're going to enjoy that ride a lot more. Yep. And that is the difference between craft and commercial. It's just like it's that, and everybody can relate to that. It's enjoying the ride while still getting there. You can get there many ways. You can take a shot of Everclear. You will.
You're there.
You're gonna get there pretty much instantly. You're not gonna enjoy that. And it is amazing how a lot of people, even with tax shoppers, that's how they shop. Is I want the highest potency for the least amount of money. It's like, no, you don't.
No,
you don't shop for anything else like that, do you? So it's just like
there's nothing. You don't buy anything like that. And also, too, I think that it's a person a personal thing, and like the more I talk to folks, because I've worked in before I got into cannabis, I was in corporate America for 25 years, and it's like I couldn't. They tested all the time, so it was like it was the forbidden plant. Like it was no exceptions. We were run by a transportation company, and it was you get caught, you lost your job. So obviously I had a family. I'm like I'm not. So we didn't run that risk. But
Yep.
it just you have to. Oh man, it's just wild. It's just a wild ride, you know. What are you thinking about? I know there's another thing we were chatting about before, like oversupply versus regulation. I know you had some pretty strong insights on
Kyle,
that.
that's all you, my man.
So, all right. So in maybe what, 18 months, 2 years ago, I started looking at just the licensing data, right? So like the CCC, so we're in Mass. So
Yep.
the Cannabis Control Commission, they have that open data policy. So you see all of this, right? And so I started just mapping out like, you know, cannabis, the curve of cannabis prices in Mass held up way longer than Oregon, Colorado. California was weird because they rolled it out differently, but like the sort of the three western, like the three western states, like, all right, so why? And I sort of watch this, and then I see the number of cultivation that's coming online. And so in Mass, there's the different tiers. So for every tier 10 that comes online, pretty much the price of an eighth on the wholesale market drops by $1. That's just sort of how the rough math has worked out.
So per
as this
tier,
every tier 10 that comes online, every
every tier
100,000
10.
square feet, we drop by about $1. That just seems to be kind of how it works. And I'm looking at all of this, just these numbers, Jesse and I, it's like, oh shit. So I went to our board probably in February, March. Things were probably trading at 12. We were probably still above 10 when my board allowed me to go online, and we have a pretty big LinkedIn, which is I think the best platform for cannabis.
Oh, for sure, by far.
And so when things were still trading above 10, I went out not as Trade Roots, and Trade Roots do not speak for me, and I do not speak for them. And sometimes I say shit that has nothing to do with my company, and that's the whole thing. But I just said, as Carl, you know, guys, if you can't live in a $5, you know, an eighth world, things are going to become hard. And I got nicknamed Calamity Carl. I'm the one, and truly I've been yelled at for causing this. Apparently it's my fucking fault for looking at numbers. And this just dumb numbers, Fermi equation, back of the napkin. This wasn't like I'm super digging in. So yeah. So as far as tier relegation goes, we have the ability we have had it expired, but we had a special permit to double the size of our cultivation. We could build an outback building, and we actually put in money in infrastructure, in rain gardens, or whatever the fuck it's called, in environmental shit, so we could do this. But we didn't want to because the Cannabis Control Commission, I'm certainly not judging them or saying anything negative at all. I'm happy you guys.
Boy, he's covering all his bases now.
You know, just all the stuff. You guys are doing a great job. I'm sure you're busy.
You're doing a great job. We love you.
But sorry, not but, and we decided not to build out and take on more debt and do all of this shit because the CCC has a regulation in 935 CMR that states that if a company doesn't sell 75% of their grow within 6 months and they have a carve out for outdoor, the CCC has the ability to shut down lights.
Shut down licenses or shut down
lights. So basically take them down tiers. So what they're saying is you're growing too much. So therefore, we're going to shut you down. We're going to reduce your ability to
and that's a good safety thing too, because now they have an oversupply, and like now what do they do with it? And also too, you're providing kind of old medicine. I mean, there's a lot of different variables on it too, you know, if they're not processing, there's so many things that are going into that.
It was something they put in place to protect the industry and make sure that it doesn't collapse for overproduction like it had in many other states. So they created a tier system. Otherwise, why do you have tiered cultivation licenses if you're not going to move people up or down
Or down.
tiers.
Well, if you
People
build
only
out the
move up.
100,000 square
They only
foot,
move up, they never move down. So
if
it's
you
just,
built out the 100,000 though, Jesse, and you can only sell 70%, just for number's sake, but you only using 25% of it, can the CCC say, hey, listen, sorry, I know you built out 100, you spent a ton of dough. You're basically can only grow and sell 25% of this grow that you built out. We're knocking it down to a tier 2 or a tier 3.
And that's actually the thing, Tony, is yeah, if all of a sudden maybe some of these companies that made representations with debt covenants and all of it, that they could do X were shut down to Y, yeah, that would screw up a lot of stuff, right? So
Yeah.
the fact the commission didn't do it, and so now we're here where we are. And yeah, there's been a tremendous oversupply, and what we've seen, and Jesse, maybe you want to get into this, but we've seen a shift. So in last year, our lab, so we live all across that supply chain, right? So from manufacturing services, extraction, all of it. You know, we would get failed flower all the time into the lab. Now it's just trim.
third party.
Third party
Third
stuff.
party, yeah, I know
process.
what you're saying. Third party, yeah. Good. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, you're getting third party stuff that you're working as like you're a processor for somebody else.
Yep, toll process.
Correct.
Toll processor.
Jesse, instead of me hand fisting this, what?
Yeah. So our lab was really built to toll process. You know, if they were only extracting our in-house trim and material, they would be very bored and have a lot of downtime. So we built our lab knowing that there was going to be a lot of manufacturing services needed for the industry, and we were going to be a toll processor, meaning we bring in third-party feed. That all started off fantastic, and we were, you know, well, not at first, but that's a different story, because you have to explain to people what you do and why they should trust you and all that, and do a lot of trial runs before you actually earn your credit as a toll processor. It doesn't, you don't just hit a button. But once you're up and running and you show what you can do, business was good. There was a lot of failed flower on the market, and there was a lot of trim on the market. There were not a ton of extractors. As the oil became more and more popular, when we first started selling oil, our first distillate sale, I think it was $28,000 a kilo.
Wow, that's insane.
Within 1 year, that dropped down to $3,000 a kilo.
That's how much supply there was in the marketplace.
It was insane. And sitting on 40, 50 kilos, being like, I couldn't give this stuff away. Nobody wanted it. Everybody was sitting on 40, 50 kilos. And that's, at that point, it's like you have this gridlock market. And Carl and I started doing the math of, all right, where do people stop extracting? Because at some point you can buy this shit cheaper than you can actually extract it.
Exactly.
And we did the math, and I was like, it's right around $5 a gram. And I was like, all right, so $5 is really that floor. Once it hit $5, you just started seeing labs drop. People were just like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. But I was like, well, the pendulum eventually is going to swing back the other way.
Yep.
And we've started to finally see that now, where it was, you couldn't give this stuff away to almost like instantly. And it was a lot of factors, and we'll talk a little bit about those. Almost instantly, people were calling us, be like, I need 10 kilos. I need 20 kilos. I need 50 kilos. And I was like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah. Why do you need this?
One was a lot of labs shut down. So now you have a lot less producers in the market. The other was you have a lot of people entering the Massachusetts market that demand a lot of distillate. You have these infused pre-roll makers like Jeter. Jeter is a very popular brand. They need a lot of distillate to produce that. You also have a lot of these beverage enhancers, you know, like the cans are cute, you know, 5 milligrams, beverage enhancer, 1,000, winner. Little bottle, packaging costs, all that. It's just like, who the hell is buying seltzers now? Nobody. Everybody's buying these beverage enhancers.
Yep.
That's a lot of distillate, though. A kilo of distillate can make a lot of beverages at 5 milligrams, but 1,000 milligram droppers, you need a lot of distillate to do that. So now the demand goes up. So that, you know, you have these things entering the market that need a lot of demand. You have Wild entering the market. You have all these big companies from out west coming in that need a lot of distillate. They don't produce distillate. They don't even have a license here. They're operating.
They're just bringing their branding.
And most of the vape producers in Massachusetts, the largest ones, they don't make oil. They fill carts. That's a difference. So they need to get the oil from somewhere. So that's what Trade Roots does a lot of, is bulk oil production. And that's something that we've really leaned into, and we've kind of joke in the building. It's like, we're a manufacturing company that has a retail store. That's just the way we look at it, because that's where we live. We live in the lab and in cultivation, and cultivation's come a long ways, and we're excited too. We're bringing in new genetics. We brought a new cultivation director, so that's going to change for us too. But it's really the lab that's kept us going and kept us alive throughout this process. But what we also saw is, in this process, the flower game changed, and all of a sudden now the price of flowers is going down, down, down. Where, like, we watched the distillate go down. Now all of a sudden the flower is doing it, and I'm like, what the hell's happening? And at the same time, I'm like, where's all the feed? And I realized, I was like, oh, there's no failed flower anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody's radiating the
running
flower.
those machines that they add in.
Everybody's radiating the flower, putting it in packaging, and selling it to the consumer without telling them that they're radiating.
There's nothing on labeling, right? I think Massachusetts isn't. I think I don't think there's many states that can. You don't have to put a stamp on it that says, just like now, like you have to have a stamp on a gummy or a stamp on something that contains THC. I think. I mean, I don't know. I'm not the governing board, but I'd like to know as a consumer where this shit came from.
The interesting part is, Tony, because there's remediation and then there's radiation. So radiation doesn't necessarily mean remediation, because you could do it before it fails. So
yes.
Remediation means the product already failed. So now you're going to have to take it and you're going to have to treat it. And then you have to take that product, get it tested in 2 different labs to show that it's clean. That's a lot of testing money. So what these companies are doing is, they're just taking their batch, they're radiating it, and then testing it, because they know they'll never fail.
It won't fail. Exactly. Yeah, they're not.
And so it's not a remediation issue where it's just like, oh, you need a remediation symbol. You need a treatment symbol saying, I treated it with ozone, or I treated it with radiation. And you know, I kind of teased it out on social media this week of, you know, if you're a consumer, would you want to know if your flower has been treated with ozone or radiation? And of course, the majority of people are saying yes. And I think 3 or 4 might have said no. But if you look at the profiles of who they work for, it's just like, of course. I mean, you're talking your own book because you're making more money by doing this. So it's just like, I understand the business side of it, but I also understand the public health and transparency side of it. And that's where I stand is, you know, if it's cleaner and safer, then tell the customer.
Well, and it's part of their SOPs, man. Right now, it's like I've been in plenty of facilities across the country, across the globe, that their SOPs at the end of growing, it just goes into remediate. It just goes right into, it just goes there just because they can't afford it to not pass, and they can't afford to have a bad.
Yes.
They just can't. Like, I get it, but I think it should just be disclosed. But I mean, that's just me.
Well, you have even the wholesale buyers are like, well, I can get pounds for $500. I'm like, yeah, but it costs them more money to grow that. So why do you think you can get that for $500? You know, it's like, that's not a real business model there. But the buyers are beholden, because they have to show numbers. They have to hit the numbers on their spreadsheets to show that their boss, that they're doing their job. So it just starts to trickle down to the bottom. And in the end, it's bad for the consumer. It's like, yes, they're getting a great deal on flour. The majority of it's not good.
No,
and quite frankly, it's probably contaminated.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Now, with all this overproduction of passable flour, or we'll say everything's passing testing. Do you feel there's stuff going out the back door? Or is it coming in the front door? Like, how do you feel? Like, what's going on with that? You know, like, I'm always concerned that you actually brought up a good point on one of our calls, and we were just chatting about. I'm like, if they have all this overproduction, are they just selling this? They're just selling weed out the back door, and they don't give a shit. And you brought up a good point. I'll let you explain. You said no, it's going the other way.
Well, I mean, it's both. You know, if you have an opportunity, you will create a thief. That's what I always say. And that is really what we're looking at here. And, you know, if you open a door, somebody's going to walk through it. And right now, yeah, both doors are pretty much wide open. And you know, we're talking about people that are career criminals. And I know a lot of them. I used to be one. And you know, we played the game of trying to get away with things and making sure we weren't being followed, making sure we weren't being watched. So there's a bright group of people out there that know exactly what they're doing and exactly know how to get around the regulations and get things both in and out the front door and back door. There's no doubt about it. You know, I know they're out there. And the reality is, I know they're out there because I can think of how I would do it if I knew the regulations as well as I do. It's possible. And I've told Carl before, I was like, you would have no idea that I was even doing it. Nobody would know except for me and probably one other person.
Yeah.
And that's it. But I'm telling you right now, I know it's happening. You know, the words Arnold Palmer's have been thrown around where,
Yep.
you know, everybody's worried about the diversion. And I'm like, well, while everybody's watching the back door, they're just walking right in the front. You know, our market is more lucrative than the traditional market. You know, you can get distillate in California. I could get it here in Massachusetts from California for 50 cents a gram.
Holy crap. It's wild.
All you got to do is get it into metric. Once it's in metric,
it's legal.
It's legal. And now you can charge $5 a gram.
And thank you for teaching us how to do that.
It's just a reality, you know. I mean, like if they haven't thought of that, they're not doing their job. That's the way I look at it. You know, we need to protect this industry or we're going to lose it. And it's going to go back underground and be completely gray and willy-nilly. And then the federal government's going to come in and say, see, I told you so.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, that's what I worry about. Because
let's give it to big pharma.
Let pharma run it.
To whoever, you know, and you know, I don't always want to pick on big pharma. They're just easy to pick on. So.
Well, I'll make you even laugh too on that one. Like I was just talking with someone that like when big pharma gets into it, I'm like, what do you mean gets into it?
They're in it.
They're in. We actually we call on a lot of stuff in Europe, like you know, like we go all everywhere. So I'm talking to this customer and he's like, yeah, my first phase XYZ pharma company funded this one. Then like 2 days later, I'm talking to somebody else who's like, oh yeah, well, our first phase was funded by XYZ pharma company, which is a brand name that you'd know here in the States. I'm like, so when someone says, oh yeah, when they get into it, I'm like, they're funding grows globally. They're just waiting.
Everything's set up. The infrastructure's already set up.
It's already here for them.
It's flipped the switch and now it's cannabis.
Big alcohol's already in it. The show that's in September, it's the cannabis show is actually tied to the global tobacco show. So when someone's like, oh, when big tobacco gets in, I'm like, what do you mean when? They're hosting a show. They're here. Dude, I'm like, it's just a matter of, and it goes back to like you're saying, like Crafters commercial. Like, are you growing good? Like, are you growing good stuff? And are you like your supply and demand? Okay, people want it. I love like that. What's it? Heady Topper up in Vermont. It's not always available. You go to like the liquor store that you go to by the ski slope. They've got 2 cases of it. If you buy 4 cans or 8 or whatever, four packs, when it's gone, it's gone. You can get it next month. So it's like you have to create that supply and demand, and it's $36 for 4 beers or whatever it is. You know, it's ridiculous. I'm like, I'm buying canned beer for my neighbors. I'm like, what did I just spend on this crap? But I mean, it's so true. But I think there's a demand there, and I think that if, like you were saying before, if you do it right, which you guys are, like not over expanding the grow, creating a great product that people want. It's okay to have it like a little bit higher price and not have anything on. Hey, we don't have it right now. You know, you don't want, you know, or we have limited supply. You know, it's a captain's cutter. It's, you know, it's whatever. But it's definitely super cool.
I've been saying, especially in this industry right now, like the bigger the boat right now, almost like the bigger the problem. And you know, it's
oh god, yeah,
it just magnifies the same problem, magnifies. You know, and all of a sudden now it's like you have how many pounds you have to move in this market, like. Good luck. I mean, it's so saturated already that it's hard enough to be moving anything, let alone be oversupplied and having to deal with that. All that's going to do is just drive prices lower and lower and lower, and you've seen it. You know, we've seen a lot of. I've heard stories where people trade bulk, and months later, they get a message back like, "Hey, you want to buy some bulk?" And it's the same flower that they sold for $300 cheaper.
Oh my
God.
And
they buy it back and then they resold it to someone else. It's just like they're just sending bulk flower around because they got to make sales. And it's just like, what is going on? Meanwhile, that flower was never actually sold to consumers, but 4 people just made a commission on that sale. Oh so it's just like, what is going on in this industry right now? That's what's going on. It's craziness sometimes, but it's oversupply. Yeah, and when there's nowhere to put it and people have to hit quotas and people have to do certain things, people do ridiculous things and they'll sell it at a loss because they need to hit their quota and they've got to show that they made their commission and
they made a sale.
they made a sale.
Do you see
One-to-one tradings was a very popular thing for a while with all these salesmen. They would do trading one-to-one from one company to another. That company didn't make any money, but yet they're paying a commission on that trade because it was technically a sale.
There was a sale. There was a sale that happened.
So
it's actually interesting.
There was a lot of that going on. Really, honestly, hurt the market in the long run. People always, once the price goes down, it's cannabis. You can't raise it right back up unless there's a reason for it, And if you could afford to sell it that low before, then you can afford to sell it that low again, and that's just the way it goes. And I think that we're going to see a massive fallout. We're already seeing it this year, and in the past few months, and we're going to see it for the next 6 to 9 months, even more. A lot of companies are not going to make it through this bloodbath, and we've been saying it for almost 2 years now. The storm's coming. I didn't think it was going to last this long, but it's been here for a while. And we came in the industry as it was just starting to come down, and we rode it all the way down to the bottom. We bounced about 4 times, and now we're starting to see finally distillate for the first time since we started selling it is on the rise. Nice. Everything else is still going down. Right now, retail is getting crushed.
Yeah, I think that the retailers too, like people are opening up stores and they don't have a brand. I think there's you guys do awesome branding and you have great marketing where people, it's recognizing it. If I go,
I think Carl's head's getting bigger through the screen.
I know. I was going to say that there's but that's honestly, that's the truth, because I'll give you examples. You and I we're all together in New Jersey. If you think about the people that were trying, some social equity folks that were trying to get licensing, and then the town kept on kicking them in the ass and kicking them down and pushing them down. And there's all of a sudden that they've been building this brand because they've been fighting the good fight for 2 to 3 years. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I'm just going to launch a goddamn brand. I'm not going to build a grow and I'm not going to build a dispensary, but I've already got a brand because I've got 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. Everybody knows me. I speak at everything and tell everybody how I'm getting killed. And then they launch a brand and they join with whoever it is. If they could join with an MSO, whoever's going to help them launch this packaging and this branding. And now that's in stores. Everybody's like, oh, that person has a great story. So it's I think that the marketing and branding is going to be a big key, for a lot of people. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but I know Carl's head is so big in the screen right now. No, I'm just kidding. But it's true though, isn't it though, Carl? I think that's the truth. The branding and marketing and getting your stuff out there is such an integral part of the business.
I was fascinated. We were down in Atlantic City, and it was early morning. I was walking down the boardwalk, and I was with our director of operations, David Logan, and we're just walking. This guy's jogging by, and he stops, looks at me, and goes, "Trade Roots." I was like, "Holy shit!" I'm like, "How do you know?" And he's like, "Oh, I used to work in Mass. Now I'm in Jersey. Love your brand, love your product, blah blah." So yeah, it was just it's that type of stuff that always blows my mind, where people, in other states recognize our brand. I'm like, we have never done anything in the state or anywhere near it, which is it's wild. And that's the power of, the social media and just that outreach and people wanting to be part of the story. You're absolutely right. People love stories.
They love the story. Carl, just get up and drop the mic. Done.
He's like, I'm out.
He's like, I'm out. It's eat the veal. Well, being the youngest, hippest social media guru alive, clearly, this was it's funny. We actually, to give a shout out to our friend Scott Jennings. So Jesse and I used to talk about Trade Roots, that we were building a machine. Now, granted, in our business plan, we talked about branding, sort of, not really understanding necessarily what that meant. And then Scott, who owns Pantry and Flower Market out in California, came to visit, and he's like, guys, and I think he worked with Tidal before that. So been in the industry for a while. And, Jesse and I were talking about, we built this machine. He's like, guys, you didn't build a machine. You built a brand. And I looked over at him with his beautiful man bun and all this stuff. It's like, all right, keep on eating your vegan stuff. It's whatever. But then the reality is, and it's really been, so obviously, what is that comment? The trope that your brand is what people say behind your back when you're not around, right? Yep. So our team built our brand, our customers built our brand, right? That's 100%. But when I take a look at like on the wholesale side, and there was a while and I haven't looked recently, but like on LinkedIn, if you, so what I did was I took, and I have no idea where we sit now, but this was maybe 8 months ago. I took the top 10 publicly traded cannabis companies by market cap, took number 10 off, put Trade Roots in, and we were between number 2 and number 3 behind Curaleaf and GTI in interactions, in impressions, in fucking all of it. And it was like, oh, well, that's why when we go to these places, people fucking know who we are. Oh shit. And I think the reason is, and this certainly won't last forever as Trade Roots grows, but I am the social media person who can make fun of me, Jesse, our cap table, our partners, our friends, all of that shit, and not worried about getting fired, except the maybe 4 times Jesse has texted me going, dude, you got to take that down. And
That's awesome.
And if I'm posting multiple times a day and I get that once a quarter, I'm fucking maybe once or twice from investors.
He's like,
I'm
hey, that one's
good.
probably not
Like,
a good one.
I was like, you're poking the bear, man. You're poking the bear.
That's awesome. No, it's so cool though. I love hearing everybody's story, and I love, like you said, it's like I love the story. I love your journey. It's so neat. Where do you see what I know that we're approaching tons of time right now? Where do you guys see Trade Roots in the future? I mean, where do you guys see yourself in the Massachusetts market? Are you going to do more dispensaries in Mass? Are you thinking of bringing your brand to another state? Would you want to have someone take the Trade Roots brand and maybe someone either you knew, or would you do an investment in another state, or where do you guys see yourselves?
I think, for where we are right now, where the industry was so turbulent for a while, right now we feel like the ship has been riding, and we're riding an even keel right now, but at the same time, we're cautiously optimistic.
Yep.
We know that there could be some more downturns, and we're preparing for that. But I think what we're looking to do is really try to figure out where Mass is going. And it's hard for us to decide where we're going in Mass until Mass figures out where it's going. And, I'm not trying to shine negative light, but there's a lot of question marks going on in the CCC right now that we just don't know. And that's very tough to bring to investors. And honestly, people that I'm trying to convince that this is the best move for me in my life, that this is the direction that we need to go. We need to listen to these people. I think there's 3 of them left, but we need to listen to them and get guidance from them, because they're the ones controlling the industry. And when there's this much turbulence and turmoil around what's happening there, it makes it very hard for us to run our businesses efficiently. To raise money, good luck. Because they're like, we don't even know what's going on in Mass right now. Nobody knows what's going on in Mass right now. Is it going to go to alcohol? Is this what's like? So it makes it very turbulent without even having to do with anything to do with us or the actual market, which doesn't help the industry one bit. And that's something that I think not enough. Everybody wants to make the jokes about how the CCC's is, CCC's that. It's like the joke's on us. The joke's on us because it's hurting our businesses. It's hurting our abilities to raise funds. We have to answer for what's happening there, and we have no answers.
Yep.
It makes it very difficult to navigate what is already extremely difficult waters. So I don't know where we're going in Mass. I think that we have visions of potentially doing some more retail in Mass. I don't anticipate us growing any more flower than we're already growing. I think we're at a good manageable size to maintain the quality that we want to produce. We're kind of a weird egg where we have a decent amount of flower at a high quality, where I'm very comfortable where we are. We don't have to sell it at top dollar just to get our money back, and we don't have to sell a ton of it to get our money back. So I feel comfortable where we are with the flower situation. Our lab, I think we have more potential in our lab to expand our lab, whether it's in Massachusetts or in other markets. And we've been approached by a lot of people to bring our brand and our lab technology and our know-how to other states to launch our brand there. And I think that if Trade Roots is going to do anything, that's probably the direction we would go. Trade Roots is a very local driven brand here in Mass. And for us to think that we can just take that and replicate that somewhere else without somebody already having that established there, I think is silly.
Yeah. Well, you guys
So for
recognize
us, if
that.
we
You
were going to go to
recognize the
Jersey, I
market.
would want to work with somebody that is established there, that already has a local base, that we
Yeah.
could go and work under more of an asset light model. And those things are working very well in Massachusetts. We work with a lot of asset light companies that are doing very well. So I think that that would be our model for expansion into other states, and our to bring our ability, you know, to hit the high quality concentrates and to work with cultivators on their fresh frozen harvests. And that's the stuff that excites me, is, you know, working with these people that are doing what we did before we knew what we were doing now. And, you know, I always joke about it when I first saw this company. It's like there wasn't a person that could tell me another thing about cannabis. And I realized I didn't know a damn thing about cannabis until we started this company. And it's amazing to me, you know, some of the bright minds that are around us. And I pride myself on not being the smartest guy in the room, you know, and that's the best room to be in. And it's pretty easy in this industry to be in that room, which is fascinating. Because it is a small industry in essence, you know, and it's getting smaller and smaller by the day.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit that's dropping out. Well, guys, this has been awesome. I'm so glad you guys were able to come on the podcast, and we'll share this with everyone. But if there's anything else you guys want to chat about or anything you want to touch on, how can people come and see you? What's your address so people know that when they reach out? Where are you guys located in Wareham?
So we're on 6th Thatcher Lane in Wareham.
Okay.
You want to find us? It's Trade Roots, TRADEROOTS.buzz.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate the time and giving us the opportunity.
This is great, man, and I can't wait to see you guys again. I have to come down and check it out again. I haven't been down to the ground a little while. It's been a minute, but
Doors always open. We got a new cultivation
Dale, and you're welcome
too. So
anytime if you want to come out.
Yeah, I would love that. I'm gonna be down the Cape in a couple of weeks, actually. Maybe I'll stop in.
Look at her go. Vacation
Awesome.
I love the Cape. It's one of my favorite places. So
awesome.
I might be living on your doorstep.
Exactly.
You're always welcome.
You guys, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Have a
Bye.
good day.
Bye.
Bye.
They're easy to talk with.
Yeah, they seem like really nice people.
I fucking love them. Like, seriously.